Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Law and Order SVU here on FANVERSATION. I'm Yael Tygiel. I'm joined by the incredible Felicia Michelle. Hello, Felicia.
Oh my gosh, I feel like so happy to be back. Come here, come in, everybody. I want to hug you all. I missed you guys.
Yes, thank you, everyone who's joining us. Thank you, Felicia, for being here. Apologies for the delayed time. It's a special weekend and everyone's busy. So
It
I'm
is a
not taking
special weekend.
yeah, I'm not taking the blame, even though it's my fault that we moved it. Um, Jennifer says, "Hello, glad you're back, Felicia."
Thanks,
Um,
Jennifer.
yeah, we're happy you're here again. I'm happy to everyone who's here live with us. I appreciate you coming at this special time. If you're listening to the audio podcast, you're like, "This is at a different time." Nope, for you, it's the same. Um,
Anytime is a good time to listen to this podcast. So even if
that's
you're
true.
listening or you're here with us now, then it's fine. Just again later, hit
Yeah,
replay, hit 5 stars.
thank you. Zach says, "Missed you, Felicia."
Hey,
So
I
good.
missed you guys too. So much good, like
Look at
Law and Order
this.
SVU is happening. Hey, Amber, so much good Law and Order SVU is happening, and I'm so disappointed that I'm coming back and this is the episode that I'm now forced to talk about. I was like, there's been so many good episodes. I
Wow.
haven't been able to do the show, and now the one that I'm like, yay, and I'm like, oh, no, it's
Well,
not.
before we get into it, because
We
we're going to have a
will.
lot
We
of
will.
thoughts.
Yes.
Yes. As a reminder, this is season 22, episode 15, What Can Happen in the Dark. If you're in a situation where you need help, please reach out to RAINN. Their number is 1-800-656-4673, 1-800-656-4673. Also, sometimes the show goes dark and we make light, and that is how we process and get through it. This episode, I feel, didn't get dark, and we're going to make light anyway because this was not the best episode. I've said it before and I will say it again, and I'm talking strictly about television and SVU, domestic violence episodes are not the best.
There were some good ones. There were some good.
Are
Well, that was
there?
no. That was more. Well, that was more like a rip from the headlines. The one that was like a play on the Chris Brown Rihanna like situation. But that wasn't. That's more like
Oh,
rip from the headlines.
that
But
that
domestic
actually, you're
violence.
right, that
Yeah.
was actually my favorite domestic violence episode, I would say. That's a weird statement. Here's the quick
Out of
cap.
context, it's very weird. Sorry, go ahead.
The quick cap. Garland asked Benson to investigate an unusual domestic violence case when his neighbor is found injured. All right, that's the quick cap. Felicia, what did you think of this episode?
Super quick. I don't want to throw the whole thing in the garbage because that's not really fair. Because I think there are some. I think Law and Order always does a really good job at hitting on different topics and kind of
Mm-hmm.
like in the beginning season, it's not really letting us know where it's going to go in certain topics or what direction they're going to go in. So I thought it was going to definitely be something about like marriages, like power structure and marriage. I didn't think it was going to end up being domestic violence at all. I was hoping for more of a twist to the twist, but
There was a twist.
I mean, I guess the twist was that he was, being abused by his wife and not, we're led to believe he's having problems at work. I mean, that's
Sure.
the initial. So that was like the take away the good part. I'm trying to be positive so bad. Y'all just like, nah, I didn't like it. Didn't like it. No. Let me see. Let me check my notes. I did like this episode. What I did like about it was more of Garland's personal life. I enjoyed
Mm,
seeing more of his wife, more of him interacting with his child, more of him being a human aspect of it. I do always, I'm not gonna lie, like when the show goes into someone's personal life. I think
right.
that this just wasn't the best way that they've interjected into his personal life.
Mhm.
But it was an interjection. It was nice. I don't like his college T-shirt though. I didn't like that. I
um,
didn't. Not because of Yale. Why I didn't like it, I'll tell you why. And it struck me when I was watching it, and I'm just gonna say it because it's how I feel. You have this super successful, prominent, intelligent, in command, good family man, seemingly good family, seemingly great husband, great member community, church goer, and all of his success. And you're like, okay. And you're like, Yale? There are so many HBCUs out there. There's so many
mm,
other schools. And it kind of, in a small way, reinforces that to have these things, you have to have this background or this type of pedigree. And that's just absolutely not true. Like our vice president went to an HBCU. So I just was like, I saw that and I was like, I just put him in something else. Just did he have to go to Yale? Like, does that have to be the college he went to? But that was just maybe a personal preference of mine, things I noticed in television.
Sure, but that is an absolutely great point that I think is very much overlooked. And I think that you make a really great point. Yeah, absolutely. Here's some things I liked. I have some things. There are some things I liked. I loved that our favorite nurse, Nurse Rudy, not only was back, but got to testify. And in his testimony, he brought up something that like reminded me of other episodes where I've brought up like minor sexual details that should have been used. And he explains how in the past, in his history, that he's seen that this type of tearing is not likely from a personal use because usually someone doing this intentionally would have used lube. And I think like it's such a tiny detail, but it's so important. And it's like in previous episodes when people are like, oh, maybe you're into BDSM. And I always point out, then they would have had a safe word, like just these little details that anyone who knows how these things work would know. And so I loved having Nurse Rudy there. I like my note says no lube with like 5 exclamation points because it's a tiny detail, but it matters so much. So that's a big thing for the writers right there. I also want to talk about Kat not believing our victim, because that was interesting. I appreciated that Carissa even pointed out to Rollins, like, shouldn't Kat be lecturing me? And I don't think we got an excuse as to why Kat did not believe Andy, right?
I wasn't super clear on that. I kind of, and I mean, to be honest, I guess if that's something that pointed out for you, I think that didn't really have much to do with this actual storyline, and maybe more it's for character development. So I guess I just didn't really, it was something I remember, but it wasn't something like it stands out in the episode to me. But I do think it's part of her character development, and maybe that's something along the lines of, yeah, go ahead.
But that's the thing, is it didn't make any sense. Like it didn't make any sense for her character, especially because Carissa even points out, like, shouldn't Kat be saying this? Yeah. And Kat's like, no, I don't believe him. And then Carissa even says, for what it's worth, my brother-in-law was sexually assaulted by his female parole officer. So like, and Kat says, yeah, I've read cases, but in this one, I don't believe it. And I want to know why. It's so interesting. Jennifer says, wasn't there no accusation yet? I thought it made sense because there wasn't enough evidence yet.
Quite, yeah.
Interesting. And back to your original point about the t-shirt, Zach says, glad I'm not the only one who noticed that. Wish Garland wore a Howard shirt. Yeah.
Or any of the other institutions that are out there, the other schools that aren't Ivy League schools, that the majority of people, whether they're of any certain color, are not going to get into. Like, maybe just that message, you know.
Nope. To be in Garland's position, you have to have gone to Yale.
Gone to an Ivy League school. Yale only. You will not be successful. I'm just joking. But it's like a small little message that kind of gets sent out. But to your point with Kat, I think it's like they want to still keep reminding us that she's a rookie and like she still makes mistakes and she's still like learning, and it's like that rookie thing, you know. But it's just you're right, that really didn't go with her character. I was kind of like, oh, okay, like, and just like kind of moved on. There were other things about this episode that I just didn't
go on.
Yeah, like I just didn't like, they just didn't like resonate with me, and I feel like bad because I don't want to say like, oh, it was boring because it was domestic violence. I don't think it was boring because of that. I think it just they could have just done so much more, like, maybe I don't know what they could have done to satisfy me. Honestly, don't even ask me. It's like asking what I want to eat. I don't know. I just know I want food.
Here's the thing. Unlike Taylor, I don't expect every episode to have wild storylines and twists and like ridiculous words coming out of people's mouths. But I do. You do. I see. So The two of you do. The thing is, when you think about, I like that you brought up the it was Caleb Bryant and Sasha were their names, not to Chris Brown and Rihanna episode. That episode was good and interesting, and that one didn't have, I think, any shocking twists. But it did engage me. Whereas this one reminds me a lot of the episode that was ripped from the headline of the football player who beat the girl in like the video footage, the sport player, and then they mixed it with the Solange storyline in the elevator.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Which that episode was also, I found, not as interesting. So like, yeah,
the messaging is what's right here. So some things that they do very well on this show is, like you said, putting the nurse on that stand and that small detail making the biggest difference. And people being like, wait a minute, okay, yeah, you're right, maybe that thing isn't really what it, maybe it's something more to this, that those small details, like actually educating people. And I mean, again, we've seen this, same nurse, even same kind of situation with male sexual assault victims, and explaining how men don't come forth and report sexual assault, that many that, like, you know, like just explaining that, like the shame behind it for a lot of men to even come forward to like say anything. And that's, so I think reiterating that was great, and that was awesome. And I liked what they did in court too. And they're like, look how big you are, look how large you are.
Yes.
Look at your size. How can you not, you know, stand up to her? And you're looking at them like even Garland's wife was like, you know, they're kind of like an odd couple. You look at some people and you're like, I get it. You look at them and you don't understand it, you know? So just like there's such a contrast in how they physically appear. And sometimes in a lot of life situations, people think because maybe if you have you're bigger in stature, or maybe you have a bigger personality, you're more outspoken, that you are unable or incapable of being bullied, abused, or anything like that. And a lot of domestic violence and the relational abuse is psychological. Like they were saying, it's a psychological thing. It's not a size thing. So I thought that was a great point that they really drove home in dealing with her, and then showing up abuse patterns. See, like how she like was gaslighting him in all those text messages and like harassing him through those text messages. I was like, that kind of made me mad, because I was like, this is the dumbest thing anyone's maybe ever done on this show.
Yeah,
while
honestly,
you're in court, while you are in court.
Yes, all of your points I agree with. When her lawyer was attacking Andy, and I want to give a shout out to this actor because it was Lee Tergesen playing Eric Garrison. So you may recall he is a repeat offender. If I remember correctly, he was attacking prostitutes and like with prayer.
Yeah, I think he was like a religious fanatic. He was a religious fanatic, and he thought he was like re-cleansing them or making them pure again or something.
Yeah, it's if I'm thinking of the right episode, he says one of my favorite. He like says, "Are you ready to meet your father?" And the girl's like, "My father," and then she like cuts him. Because she's like, "Excuse me." It's so good. Yeah. So anyway, that's a repeat offender. He needs a shout out for that. But when he's questioning Andy on the stand, and he's like, "You're bigger. Why didn't you say no? Why didn't you stop her?" And I appreciated his response of like, "I'm so much bigger. I didn't want to hurt her." I was like, that actually is fascinating and makes sense. And you're right. The trial, the like court case was so much more interesting than the beginning of the episode. And it was good, and the details were good. But I think that when we had the moment where he's like, you didn't say no, you didn't get up and leave. If I were in the jury watching this, I was like, flip this in my head. If that was a woman, I'd be like, you're attacking her. So I feel like the lawyer made a mistake. I think that was not the method he should have gone after. It just felt like an attack.
I think it was interesting that they kept saying, this is just a personal matter. This is just a private matter. This is a family matter. This is a relational matter. And I'm like, okay, do you know that it could be that and it could be illegal? I'm mutually exclusive. It's not. It could be totally your private personal business, and you could be, and it can be 100% illegal, and they're not mutually exclusive. So guess what? Clank clank. Like I thought that her punishment was really that kind of made me mad, because I was like, you sent such a strong, like, well, it seems like you're trying to send such a strong message about how anybody can be a victim and anybody can be a predator, really, or an abuser rather, because that's someone you would look at her, right, and she's just like thin, artsy, high, like high upper echelon type of vibe, I guess. And but she's abusive, but she does things like that, like, and the things that she does are like sexual, sadistic things, like you would probably never have guessed that in millions, especially when they came into the gallery. I don't know if you remember this part, it stuck out to me. She was like, I didn't write it down in lines.
Oh, I did.
It was too many things. You probably did. When she was like, oh yeah, this artist is, she's a, first off, she's like 3 different races, she's pansexual and some other thing, and I was like almost like, look how diverse and open and inclusive and accepting and open-minded that this artist is, who lives around the corner from here. Like it was just, or like a neighborhood artist. It just seemed like she came off like she was some type of ally or understanding person, or someone who has like the cognitive ability to understand or to have like a certain level of empathy, but you are at home doing crazy stuff. That's crazy what she did. That was crazy. Like literally, I thought about it for 1 second, and I've like been mad at people I've dated, and I've never wanted to harm them in that kind of way. I mean, I just think like, he's like, oh, I don't want to make her mad, and I want to make her mad. And it's like, that's what she does when she's mad. That's crazy. And so we got to see, like, listen, it's not just, this is not what an abuser looks like. It's not what an abuser dresses like. This is not how there's no one way for somebody to be abusive to someone. And we saw that with her. What I didn't like was that she got away with it. And it was like, why are we not having accountability in these types of cases? Like when these type of things happen and it's the other way around, it's a female victim and it's a male abuser, then he goes to jail. Like if that, okay, literally it was the other way around, and a man had been raping his wife, he would have went to jail. He wouldn't have left her no house. He wouldn't have signed over no child. He wouldn't have done any of it. Like her life would have gotten harder. Her life would have not gotten easier. We see women get justice, but the justice will change their life sometimes, and not in the best way possible. But like, she got to just keep her regular life. I mean, yes, she's on the sex offenders list, and so she can't have custody of her son, and that's the reasoning why. Okay, but you're on probation for a year, 365 days of probation, and he says, oh, I'm not going to keep you from your son, but I'm just going to keep you out of my life. And it just seemed like you just got a slap on the hand and you got to like walk out. And I just can't imagine that storyline, or even in fictional or reality, happening for a non-white woman.
Absolutely. 100%. It reminds me of also, again, taking it back to Carisi's brother-in-law when he was assaulted by his PO. She was like, the argument was whether she'd go on the registry, and she was like, I don't want to be on the registry. And it made me think of like, every time we've had a man, like, they don't get a choice because it's a sex crime. Like, you get put on the registry. And it really is interesting, and there is a double standard, and I feel like I'm glad we had this episode. I'm glad we are dealing with this topic and discussing it. I wish the story was done better. That said, the acting was phenomenal. Everybody was on the top of their game. Seeing these characters, Andy and Diana, they were amazing. I want to give some shout outs to the actors because they were so great. So that was Michael Gladis, who was Andy. He is also a repeat offender. He is from one of my favorite episodes, Branded, which is great episode. Go rewatch that, everybody. And Anna Wood. They had posted, apparently Michael and Anna, the actress, this is the 3rd time they've worked together, which is amazing. And you got to have that kind of trust for this kind of relationship, which was so good. And she said some things that made me laugh. When Rollins and her are talking at the gallery, I actually really like this scene because Rollins like did not attempt to like mislead her, but the woman made assumptions about Rollins, which was so interesting, and was misled and then got mad about it, but it was her fault. And she says in the last year, our sex life has gotten weird. It got weird and angry. And I almost want to be like, relationships, sometimes you do need to spice it up. I don't know why you're like shaming yourself. If you want to claim that your relationship got like kinky, then why are you, unless you're going to claim that he's forcing you to do things you're not into, which is so funny because later she, decides to cut herself and blame him. And I think the moment where he says, I did it, whatever she said, I was like, hey, this is a red flag. Everybody, red flag.
Yeah, that's laundry on the field for sure. Yeah. No, seriously though. That's when the little boy. First off, I felt so bad for that. That little boy did a really great job acting. He did a really phenomenal job. I believed him because I was sad. Like when he was like, he wasn't even excited for brownies, and I am at my big age still excited for brownies. So like, you're sad. And
let me give him a shout out for Charlie, played by Hudson Paul.
Good job, Hudson. Yeah, well, he named after the worst fictional university in the entire world.
Oh, good call.
That's funny. But like it. Let me get back to my point. Sorry about that. He was just so sad, but him like saying that in the scene and him saying like that she inflicted that wound on herself. And I know you say DV stories on SVU are not your favorite, but it reminded me of a scene in this movie. I don't know if you ever saw this movie. It's with Martin Lawrence and Lynn Whitfield. It's called Thin Line Between Love and Hate. It's a 90s movie. And in the movie, I'm not going to give it away because if you haven't seen it, you should see it. It's like a classic movie. And she beats herself up to go report him harming her. And when I saw that, I was like, that is psychotic, because in the movie Lynn Whitfield was psychotic, but that is like that psychotic behavior that I have to harm myself when self-harm is not something that I struggle with in order for someone to believe me that I've been harming someone else. And that's another reason why I don't think that she should have gotten just probation.
Right.
She needs treatment.
Yeah.
She forced a vibrator up her husband's anus until he bled. Like that is literally, that's what happened. No, that's
I know.
What told us that happened.
But you saying those words was unexpected.
Sorry about that. How are you going to tell us that this is what she did, right? Because you have to think about it. Like she physically did, like this is like, and put this concept in your brain. And now she gets to go on probation. She needs to go talk to somebody. She needs to go get hands laid on her. She needs to go, and I mean in prayer, not like in fist, but
I definitely
happened too. You thought it was
also
like
could be helpful.
No. No, she needs like help. And the fact that she just got probation, if anybody's ever been on probation or parole, like that's not necessarily all the help that you need if you're in a different type of position, and less likely probation. I mean, not like she should have served jail time. I'm sorry. Like,
I agree.
Failed in this episode.
Especially because it is very clear that the probation she is on is not the same probation that somebody from a different neighborhood or a different skin tone would be on.
Will probably be on, yeah.
Yeah, I have to point this out. Amber says, great acting, just wish it was better conceptualized episode. And then goes on a whole baseball thing. Like not a swing and a miss, but more like an infield fly ball. Like I know what the fuck that means, Amber.
So yes, it's like you hit the ball, right? This is because I played softball for one whole season.
Oh, great, please.
So it's like, yeah, it's terrible. I just want to wear the uniform. So you hit the ball, and though you did hit the ball and it did go somewhere, it counted for nothing. So it gets a fly ball, so it doesn't count for anything. And
I see.
And you hit it and it went somewhere, but it doesn't really matter, it doesn't really count. And Amber, if I'm incorrect in explaining that, I only played one season of softball. But y'all,
Amber coming at me like I know what a fucking baseball
like,
metaphor.
What the hell?
Here she says, "LOL, you hit the ball, but your ass is still out."
Oh, you're
Thank
out.
you.
Okay. Oh, because okay, you get out the game. Okay. See,
All right.
I know
That's
that
enough
you
of
do
that.
hit the ball. Okay, well, we're gonna go to a baseball game, yo. We'll break this down. We'll figure this out. Yo said, hell no.
No. Audrey says, would we be saying treatment and help if it was a man of color assaulting a woman? Look, we want jail time. I think we all agreed that she should have had jail time.
But I mean, Audrey's point is Nadra. I love that name. That's my grandmom's. That's my grandmother's name. But her point is right. She's just saying. But I can't be mad at the writers because they wrote it how people are experiencing the justice system in the real world. I
Right.
can't totally be
But
wrong.
that's a
Or
great
maybe
question.
that is actually like, why not? Why don't we see that?
I mean, yeah. Audrey's bringing up good questions. All right.
And they don't have baseball in them, so they're great questions.
Yeah, there's no baseball. I could follow what's happening.
Amber, do basketball. Amber, do basketball next time.
No. Keep the sports out of this. I'm very confused. Let's talk about the stupidity of the texts. Because so when Andy was sitting outside the court and looking at his phone, and like it was clear that something was happening, and great detectives on our team did not investigate what was happening at that moment. And then he's on trial, and we see her texting, which her lawyer should have been like, put the fucking phone away. You're on trial. And then also he checks his phone on the stand. It was confusing. It was confusing, the text.
Make it make sense. I mean, well, I think it just maybe was like I said, it was shows just how abusive she really is, that she can't. And he said that, see, I think and maybe you missed this line, but he said she's getting so mad and I'm scared because when she gets mad like this, she can't control herself. So she could. So if she's in a courtroom with him, she can't physically get to him. She can't. So the only thing in her control is the phone that's in her hand. And so she goes on a spree. And I don't know about any of y'all. I have definitely read people their rights via text message before. You may have gotten a paragraph from me if I felt some type of way about what it was, and although text messaging is not a great form of communication, it's the least effective form of communication because there's no social cues, no nonverbals, no tonality in your voice. So if you ever have a text conversation and it's going bad, just stop it anyway. So all she could do was text in that phone. So that's what she did. Right. And the crazy part was that didn't even get her shot in the foot. Like you made that big giant blunder and you did it in court, and the judge didn't even say, the nerve of you to come in to be in this court, to sit in front of this court and this jury's time and conduct yourself like that during the processing of this court and blah, blah, blah. Like she should have been read her rights, like for doing that. Like that's the reason that she should not, I don't know. It's just weird. Like they didn't say anything to her about that. It was so strange.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the judge should have penalized her because like there was a, no contact or no communication order in place. And so it's very interesting. I feel like we've seen where a judge adds to a sentence. And I think that like maybe she could have been like, the deal agreed upon was 1 year, but instead, because you disregarded the one rule,
due to the
we're going
natures
to add
of your
an
crime.
extra. Yeah. But Amber says Judge Barth would have said something. I don't know. Judge Barth is now on the defense team, so who knows?
I don't know. He kind of switched up a little bit. You never know. You never know.
Yeah. Jennifer says, yes, maybe if that led to some kind of judge speech, maybe it wouldn't have annoyed me so much. Great points. Great points. Yeah. Also, I just think it was stupid of her because it's in writing. Like, girl, at least snap it. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, so when he screenshots it, then you'll know, like, dang, they got me. Like,
no, just at least something. Whatever. Anyway, this episode was not the best. It could have been better. The topic was interesting. The acting was amazing. I'm out. Oh, the details. The writing was pretty good. It just was the story wasn't the best.
I was playing Panda Pop while I was watching it. Panda Pop. It's a game.
Is that a game on your phone?
Yeah, and I was playing it when I was watching it, and usually I like can stop myself, like, because like during the commercials I'll play the game, and I was like,
Right.
oh, it's back on. I didn't even realize, like, oh, my phone
Mhm.
down. Like, let me try to get back into it, and it was, I think it was a little hard to get into. I don't know what necessarily was missing, and it could just be us. We could totally be the small minority of people who thought this episode wasn't that wonderful or great. If you disagree, or there's reasons why you think it would be better, how you could leave a comment, tell us, because I really would like to know, because even though I have criticism, I have no solution to how maybe the episode could have.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Is I also was like, what was it missing? Like, did it need some sort of twist? Did it need something interesting? I know you weren't a fan of the end.
No.
I
Finn didn't
did
say
like
anything cheeky either. We missed that.
that
We
was
didn't get like
true.
a little Finn one-liner in there. We didn't get one.
Yeah. Jennifer says, I think it was missing tension and logic. All right. That's a good point. I think that the moment at the end, with Benson and Andy being like, you don't have to listen to her, and then her being like, whatever, I want to be part of the kid's life, and he was like, you can be in his life, but you can't be mine. I liked that moment. I didn't like that that's how the episode ended, but I liked that moment. Yeah, please let us know how this episode could have been better. But
maybe one more suspect. Maybe there was like one more suspect.
Yeah.
I think that maybe it could have, like, if there was a little bit more guessing, and then it was like revealed, like, oh, it's his wife. Like, oh my gosh, So maybe if there was a little more gray area of who could have done it.
Yeah.
It was so clear, and when a twist is so clear like that, it's not a twist anymore. It's just what happened in the story.
I think you're right. I think also the fact that the trailer or the promo for this week let us know what we were tackling made me not consider any of the earlier stuff. And I feel almost like it would have been interesting if there had been like, in this neighborhood there was an attack last week or something. Something just so that it wasn't so.
Oh, okay, yeah. So like they've done that before. Like, it's like, oh, this happened, and okay, we'll just put my assault or my with everyone else's, but it's something totally different. Okay, yeah, that could have been a thing. I don't know what it was. It's crazy because, like, again, the acting was so great. We had 2 repeat offenders.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe it's just that it was coming off so much heat. Like so many like really like great episodes that I did not get to talk about with y'all, and now we have this, and maybe just in contrast, I'm ungrateful.
Maybe. Yeah, that's possible. I mean, I don't want to say you're ungrateful, but maybe. I'm kidding.
No, you should be grateful, because sometimes we don't get new episodes, and sometimes there's like a lot of breaks with this show.
That's
so
true.
Whenever you get a new episode, I am grateful for a new episode. So that's why I'm saying maybe I'm ungrateful, because I wasn't so enthused about this one.
Yeah. Well, last week we talked a lot about the case from last week. So we had asked specifically for anyone who's in the psychology field to give us some information specifically about this concept of breaking, what did they call it? Breaking diagnosis. And I got some messages from multiple people, one on Twitter, one on Instagram. I'm pulling them up right now because I want to read you all these things, because I thought it was so interesting, and we did want to know, and I want to give you all this information. So a psychologist says, her name is Robin, says, I'm a psychologist. I've never heard of the term to break diagnosis. Some disorders you can be diagnosed with and then no longer have, or be less severe once going through treatment. For example, anxiety or depression, often people will go for a while without being depressed and then be depressed again. But unlikely the more serious disorders. Also, you're right, you can't be cured, quotes on that, if you're a psychopath. People have therapy and go on medication to help manage their behaviors or emotions. So thank you so much, Robin, for that. There was also a thread on Twitter I'm going to read this out from Amber. All right, it is about psychopathy as a diagnosis. Here we go. Psychopathy isn't a diagnosis on its own. It isn't in the DSM, and the closest diagnosis would be antisocial personality disorder. However, there isn't a clear overlap between the two. The tools, quotes on that, used to determine psychopathy are often used on people in the CJS. The thing is, the traits often used to describe psychopathy can also be praised given circumstances and industry, lack of empathy and remorse, lack of inhibitions, large ego. All of these can be seen in many high-performing, successful people in the corporate world. Psychopathy is really a way that is used to differentiate us versus them. They must have done these horrible things because they were different than we are in some way. They may be fundamentally different, but it may not be these specific traits. And also about breaking diagnosis, as far as Amber's aware, it isn't a thing. You may have another physician give a second opinion who may not agree with the initial diagnosis, but there is a fundamental difference between breaking diagnosis and successful treatment. All of these are fascinating. There's more to this rant, and I'm happy to share it again on Twitter. But yes, so back to my thing about, I don't think breaking diagnosis is a thing. I also think that we definitely use, when there are like, mass shooters or terrorist attacks, we do use mental health terms to try to understand why people do things. And I think that that's a huge problem that we have as a society, trying to demonize mental health, whereas somebody does something terrible does not necessarily mean they have a mental health issue. But that is a whole other discussion that we could have on a whole other episode. I just wanted to make sure, because we talked about it a little bit last week, that we could talk about it this week as well. Okay. We usually have a weekly poll, but Taylor's not here this week, so we do not have a weekly poll. Anything you wanted to add about the psychopathy thing?
Before we do our favorite lines?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, I could probably really get on my soapbox about how we all talk about how information is shared and delivered in instances of people who are terrorists, whether those are domestic or international or other whatever, people who do terrible things. So there are certain ways that we describe some people who do those things versus other people who do those things. You know what I mean? And
yes,
but
I
think that people make the mistake. Yeah, if you're picking up what I'm putting down, people make the mistake of, now we knew things were wrong, or we maybe you could describe a thing, but now we have actual language to describe certain things, right? Like, so before we just like, okay, we knew, okay, misogynist, right? But now we know more, an elitist personality or something. Like, we have more vocabulary, and with that education comes just like learning, like stumble blocks of people really not knowing, because they're all learning all this information so fast and so quickly every single day, that I think the general public, we all make mistakes because that's not our area of expertise. And white people that go and shoot up buildings of innocent people are not having a bad day. They are domestic terrorists. They are not there. They didn't just have a bad upbringing. They're domestic terrorists, because there are people who've had bad days, people who've had terrible upbringings that have not taken a single life. And that's probably just where I'm going to leave it.
I think that's a fair place to leave it. And no, I don't believe anyone's going to be arguing with you here. Let's talk about our best lines from this episode. You seem ready. You want to go first?
I only got one.
Oh.
I literally, like, seriously, I can barely remember what I'm going to get at the grocery store. I have to write it down as I'm watching it, or I will not remember it at all. And or if but I usually don't write because I'm watching the episode, but I had time to write a little for this one. So my favorite part is in the beginning when we're introduced to Andy's family and everyone in the morning, the Garland's neighbors, and he's like, they're brushing out the door, they're doing this, they're doing that. He's like, are you gonna do this thing? Like, are you? And I think he asked something, and he was like, nope, time for school, gotta Zoom. And I just thought that was like the cutest thing ever because they're on Zoom, like that's what their school is. I was like, that little joke was funny.
That's such a good one, especially because the girl, Garland's daughter, also was like, I have a fever, I can't go, so I don't have to Zoom, right?
The best part was her like jumping around after like talking about she was sick, and she's like, what happened to your headphones? Like, I can't dance with my headphones.
Yeah, that one's also a good one. Those are great.
That little girl's funny too. I can't dance with my headphones in. That's my other line. I like that one.
All right, I have we have sex toys. Is it possible he did this to himself? That one, because I laughed. And then I also really liked where he's like, I did it. Whatever she said, I did it. Like, that's not how this works. And then also, I don't have the actual quote, but when Nurse Rudy was like, usually lube is present. That also, I was like, yep, that is correct. Yeah. So
that's funny. So one more thing I realized about that scene, and we're not told directly that if he is a heterosexual or homosexual or whatever, how he identifies on this, like, but I assume that he's a gay man.
Who
is that? The nurse.
Oh, Nurse Rudy?
Yeah. So him talking about why I assume that, I don't know, but him talking about that, it's probably his level of comfortability in talking about this. And I could just be because of his job, but him talking about it made it even more. It's like, okay, well, it seems like the writers kind of implied that he's like a gay man, right? So he would even know more about actually having being penetrated anally. He would know most about it. So when he brought the lube thing, I was like, yeah, because he probably knows more about that.
I mean, also he is a sexual trauma nurse specifically. Yeah. And earlier Finn points out, like, ask the nurse how many times people come in and claim they accidentally fell on something. I have a doctor friend who tells me all the time about people who come in and accidentally fell on something in their butt. So like, guys, the doctors are aware. I don't know why you're lying to them. Just tell them what happened. Anyway, point being,
hold on, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Someone sits there with a straight face and tells someone who went through 12 years of primary school, 4 years of secondary education, and 3 more years in medical school, and another additional 2 years as a residency, at least, and then plus however many years of medical experience that they have, that I fell and something got stuck in my butt.
They fell on it. Usually, from what I understand, it's because it's a shampoo bottle. So the guy fell.
Excuse me. If you listen to us anywhere that you hear podcasts, I'm choking right now because I cannot believe that. I don't have any.
Anyway,
where? Oh, Taylor, I miss you.
She's probably like, oh, I'm so glad I'm not there for this.
Oh gosh.
Anyway, those are some of our best lines. Let's get into what did we learn? I came prepared. Okay. I think you just learned something, but I came prepared.
Okay.
Allegedly, Harlem is the new Chelsea. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Yeah, it's called gentrification.
No, I'm aware of gentrification. I live in not New York. Why would I know that?
Yeah, no. Oh, it was like I'm from the East Coast, you know that. So it was a couple years back, like it was people were talking about real estate development. And they were like, Harlem is like a new place, like how Brooklyn became like really big and it was booming, and as everybody was moving, it was being gentrified. It was like Harlem is essentially next. So I'm not surprised by that. I don't know if have you ever been out to New York before?
I will be going again soon. didn't know that Harlem is now the new Chelsea. And now I know. What did you learn?
I learned that
You just learned that
wait.
people
No,
lie
I
to
was trying to
doctors.
think. I was just that I did learn that I would not do that. But I now I'm thinking about it. Sorry, that woman cut herself, but she cut herself like right here. She's really crazy. She could have killed herself. Anyway, what I learned that even in written television dramas, white privilege still exists. And
I would
punishment will
assume
not come down.
I would assume that was on purpose.
It very well might be. It very well might be. It could, or it could be on accident. It could, whatever. It could, but it just was like, and it's kind of like this, right? Like this whole like this year and all of last year, I think a lot of people just wanted folks to be accountable for whatever they did wrong, right? So it's
Right.
not even just by race, not even just by gender, sexuality, but like be a decent human being. Seems like it was the message. Like stop violence, stop hate,
Yeah.
like stop that, like cut it out. And so it's like you hear that narrative has been going on. Really, it's been going on for longer than this year and a half or whatever, but it's really rang loud in these, like in my life anyway, the loudest in this last 18 months or whatever. And for it to be written like that and for no accountability to be held, when for 2 seasons at least of this show, people have been calling for accountability for people who do things that are wrong or heinous, and we didn't get accountability. And I guess maybe living in in a personal world or my personal life, I enjoy fairness and accountability, and I just didn't get it here. So I was like, dang, this is the place I feel like you should, because Law and Order is always like, oh, we're the good guys and we do good,
Right.
and but again, when bad things happen, never reflects on the team. Never reflects on the team. She didn't get brought to justice. The team still did a great job. Like, so that's what I learned, which wasn't really anything, I guess, because I already knew that.
I mean, you're right. And we talked about early on in the season when they decided that this is the season and that the show is going to try to deal with these things. And now we had an opportunity, and
you didn't even have to change any of the dialogue. You didn't have to change the story at all. You could have just put Finn in with one line that said something like that just pointed it out, or just said, hey man, this is great, like that, this is how this happened, like just somebody who would have been the voice of reason to just quickly say, wow, that doesn't seem like it's enough, but Andy probably could, like, he'll probably be able to get through this, and we're going to get him counseling or something, or like, this doesn't seem like, or even Kat being like, oh, I feel bad, I didn't believe her, and now she, and now I didn't believe her, and she was doing this, and she still didn't get brought to justice. Like, how do you deal with this? Like, the
right.
questions that she normally asks. So we didn't get any of that. Maybe there were scenes that got cut out. I don't know.
I mean, I think you're right. I think Finn or Kat, somebody should have said something. Garland could have said something. I think you're right. Also, it seems odd that Carisi would have taken the deal, since like he would have won. Like, it seems like everyone knew he would have won. Even her lawyer was like, I'm not gonna put it on the stand. I'm not gonna tank my own case. And like the texts really like were the nail in the coffin. I don't know why Carisi made the deal.
Like, it was pretty much over after that.
Right. I understand that it is difficult for some people, I guess, to believe that a man could be assaulted. But it also, if we go back to an early season, when Diane Neal, before she was Novak, her and her 2 friends assaulted that stripper. And like, that was a challenging case because it was vaginal penetration. So like, it was hard for them to understand. This, I think everyone understood.
Yeah,
he did not want that very clearly. He was also unconscious. I think that was the other part, is like, he woke up to it. And I think that could have been a point of Carisi's, like, he wasn't awake. He could not consent.
No consent. Yeah.
Even if he wanted it, he was not awake. So it just seems interesting that he would make this deal. And you're right. In another circumstance, this is not how it would go down. All right. Before we wrap things up here, as a reminder, we are doing a little bit of a contest. If you rate and review on iTunes, we're asking for a 5-star rating. Anything less, we'd like to know how we can improve. And a comment so that we know that you did it. And on any iTunes or any YouTube video until the finale, the season finale, which I believe is next week, we are looking for comments. And then you can help choose what we're going to discuss over the summer, because we are not, even though the show is going on hiatus for the summer, we will not be. We'll be covering older episodes all season or all summer. Also, in case you missed it, you can now buy Slammin' Pair of Jeans onesies for your baby, or if you're pregnant, a shirt that says Slammin' Pair of Jeans down where the offspring is growing. It's like lower on the shirt.
You're not going to say where the offspring is growing. You mean where their baby bump?
Yeah, that. Also, now there are Justice for Snowball t-shirts. So if you would like to get a Justice for Snowball t-shirt or a Slammin' Pair of Jeans onesie, that merch is now available in the link below. I wonder what our next thing will be.
Not nothing based off of this episode.
No, nothing from this episode.
I'm sorry, this one is not the one.
I guess something along the lines of like, if you're gonna stick it in the butt, use lube, something like that.
What's the one put on that shirt? Slip and slide. That's what we gonna put on there.
I don't know. I love it. I love it. We'll make more merch as we go. I think it's fun, and check it out. And it has our podcast name on it because we're cool. I think that's about it. Felicia, where are you and where can everyone keep up with you on the internet?
I'm on Instagram at It's Felicia Michelle. I'm taking a Twitter hiatus because Twitter can be trouble. So I'm going to stay out of trouble. And I'm going to stay on Instagram where I just look at pictures and I don't have to read all of people's words. So that's where I'll be at. And it's on the screen. It's on the
yeah.
It's right. It's right there.
Oh, I found it. Okay.
Thank you, Yael.
You're welcome. I'm everywhere at Yael Tygiel. That's YAELTYGIEL. We will be back, of course, next week at our regular time. Apologies for this move. It was my fault. Thank you to everyone who was live in our chat today. We had so many people joining us. Jennifer, Amber, Daryl, Alice, Audrey, Kay Hirsch. I saw other people.
Oh, dang. Y'all really in here. And shout outs to Amber for teaching Yael about baseball.
Sports. Also, for those who missed it, if you enjoy watching people attempt video games, you can join me on Twitch tomorrow. I'll be doing Super Nintendo, and Wednesday I'll be on the Xbox. I'm bad at both. Be aware. Also, I have a really amazing queer podcast called Have You Tried Not Being a Podcast? We just did a really amazing episode about the commodification of pride and about like how all of a sudden every store sells rainbows. So check that out. It's fascinating.
I have that queued up because I'm gonna listen to it because I was like, okay. I was like, I guess. Oh shoot, do they do that? Do that? Okay, okay.
It's fascinating. The like history of that is so interesting. And we learned it and presented it to everybody. So yeah, check that out. Do I have anything else to plug? No. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yes, we miss you and we miss Taylor. But next week it'll be all three of us again. It'll be like back when it's like when Destiny's Child gets back together. That's exactly how it's gonna be.
I love that. Now I'm like, wait, who's Beyonce?
That's let's not do that. Let's just all be let's be the Powderpuff Girls. Let's do that. Let's be something different. Because every time you just someone does ask about Beyonce. Sorry.
The question is who? And the answer is all of us. We are all Beyonce.
Yay. Y'all have a good week.
All right, bye everybody.